Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And here with me, I have Michael Likey and Dr. Michael Likey. And we haven't seen Dr. Michael Likey or talked to Dr. Michael Likey in, I don't know, 11 years?
Wow, is it that long? I thought it was only like 7, 8 years. Holy cow, time escapes us. The illusion of
Yeah,
time escapes us.
that's right. Last time I interviewed you, you were with me at Astral. Yeah, I remember your little yellow suit. Your hair wasn't gray.
Yeah, that was dyed. My ego always, made me dye my hair before any kind of appearance. So now I've decided, you know what, this is me. I love me. I like me. It's whatever. It's natural. It's who
It's
I
you.
am.
Absolutely. So tell me, Michael, or well, tell everyone else first, because those who haven't watched the interview, you might want to learn a little bit about you before we move on to what you're doing now and what's changed. So give us a little bit about, where you grew up, your life, what happened, and we can go from there.
Sure. Basically, and as briefly and succinctly as I can do it, I was born and raised in Montreal. My professional background is graphic design. I went to college for it, and hence afterwards, I mostly worked as an illustrator in advertising and promotions and that sort of thing in Montreal, Toronto, and Winnipeg. I kind of moved west across Canada. I met my future ex-wife in Montreal, and we tried Toronto, and I liked Toronto. I had family in Toronto as well, but I checked out Winnipeg, and this is circa 79, 1980. Maybe a lot of people weren't born then, but maybe a lot of people out there were born then, and everything seemed to gel with me.
Okay.
Everything that I had to offer, my magic shows, my graphic design, my illustration, everybody seemed to be interested and voracious in
Right.
all of that. So hence I worked virtually 24/7 for 13 years in Winnipeg, doing about 250 magic shows a year, plus the TV show, plus graphic design, plus caricatures. I had a lot of
Yeah.
agents as well booking me. And in my spare time, usually about 2 weeks of the year, 2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks of every year, it was kind of quiet. And I liked playing with the tarot. Oh,
Right.
and
I remember
um,
that.
I had a close friend who was a professional tarot reader. And it just, that to me is pure magic. What happened there was, and it seemed like a whole door opened. And I liked the visuals, and I liked on so many levels the
Right.
artwork. And also at the same time, around that time, I'd received knowledge, what was called knowledge at the time, by we'll say he was a meditation teacher. He came to North America in 1970, and that opened up more stuff for me,
Right.
more of a self evolution, if you will, or spiritual evolution. And after 13 years and minus 40 and multiple burnouts from working so hard, doing like 6 shows or 10 shows a weekend and all that sort of thing. I just sat and I thought, you know what? I'm tired of minus 40. I'm tired of putting on a heavy coat, boots, blah, blah, blah. I have a friend, still do actually, who had moved to Vancouver to BC 5 years before I moved there. And he painted a pretty rosy picture. It was pretty rosy for himself. And he and his wife promised to keep myself and a female friend of mine with them until we got on our feet. So in 1994, we packed up I packed up my van. I had a van at the time, and whatever we could put in there, we gave everything else away, most of our home furnishings and everything, because I thought, we'll simply rebuy everything once we get to the other side, if you will, the other side of the
Right.
mountain.
Right.
And 1994, end of September, I'll never forget, it was around 26th or 29th, I guess I did forget, of September. We rolled in, and my first impression, having grown up in Montreal with roots in New York and Toronto, and then living in Winnipeg, a very pristine, very clean, delicate physically and ethereally. Vancouver. I happened to come in through the North End Bridge, whatever that's called. Could have been Lionsgate, perhaps. inadvertently, and I was met with this beauty. Now, the beauty of nature isn't new to me. I grew up with that in Montreal, but it's
Right.
also a huge city. It's got 4 million people. Here we have half of that. And so, pristine, beautiful town or city is what beckoned me, if you will, to settle down here. I met
Nice.
my future wife here, who's from here originally, and it was the beginning, one of the beginnings of my spiritual journey. I believe that meditation was the true beginnings.
Right.
Then receiving Reiki from a teacher back in Montreal, believe it or not, because I visited there during my stay in Vancouver. So I was stripped clean. No one seemed to care or like or appreciate or whatever you want to
Right.
call it, all the stuff that had come before.
Right.
And it was like me on a cliff, kind of clutching, because I went
Right.
with fear. I didn't know anything but what I knew for 20 years or more.
Right. And it wasn't working for whatever reason at the time.
Exactly. And at the time, I panicked. I got resentful. I thought, what the heck? But fate, I don't know, I hesitate to say fate, something happened so that I couldn't financially go back. I could not turn around and come back
Right.
here.
Right.
And kept practicing meditation, staying calm, enjoying, and going into a query, asking myself on
Right.
a subconscious level, why is this happening? But not like, why is this happening? But it's like in an interested way,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. Right. And
And
that makes a difference, right? And it makes a
oh,
difference.
absolutely, it sure does. When we go into fear, and we were just talking about this before we went to air, when we go into fear, it's kind of the opposite of love. I know people think, some people think the opposite of love is hate. It's fear, I
Right.
believe.
Yeah.
And when we go into fear, it kind of creates a resonation that results in not such good. I'm being judgmental by saying not so good. I
Right.
believe we can find good in everything, even things that,
Absolutely.
right? We
That's
can
so
find
good.
blessings, if you will, in whatever happens, because, and I truly believe this, and a lot of people might go, Michael, you don't know what you're talking about. And they would say just like that, Michael with a cigar, you don't know what you're talking about. But I do. And I really believe that when we go into fear, other things happen that we're not expecting. Maybe that's to help us grow. Maybe that's to help us open up. It forces us to open up. And that's essentially what happened to me from 94 on. I discovered a whole world and tools where I could help others to help themselves.
Okay. Wow. So when I last spoke to you, you had written a book.
Okay.
I don't recall the title of the book, but you can help me with that. I know the word soul was in it.
Yeah. The reason why I went okay is because I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just grateful. I've written 46 self-help metaphysical books and 12 to 15 Magic Mike, the performer related books,
The new
and
books.
CDs and DVDs, etc. So I believe that it was the science of the soul at the time.
It was.
Right?
It was.
When you and I connected.
Wow, good memory.
I guess.
Well, because I went online to see if I could figure out what the title was, and there was like way too many to figure out.
Yes. It's overwhelming, isn't it? To prepare for this, I wrote down a couple of notes. I know I sent you a whole batch of stuff, but it's like, this is better to do it this way. I wrote down a couple of books, the titles that I really highly recommend. I don't make really much money, maybe $1, maybe a couple of cents off of each book. That's not why I write my books. I write my books, first of all, when I'm inspired, if you will, and a title comes to me and it just flows. And I can write a 300-page book, and I have many, in a month, or a 100-page book in a month. I just pace myself.
Would you be able to list all the books you've written?
No, but it's exhausting for me. Probably, hopefully, folks out there won't be bored, but I was really guided to just mention a few, pardon me, the powerful healing gift of prana. Prana was life-changing for me. I believe it's life-changing for others. It's been proven
Right.
that
I've
it
taken
is.
a course in pranic healing, so I have an idea of what that is. But maybe you want to tell others about it a little bit.
Sure. And I'd like to, at the same time, compare it with Reiki.
Okay.
So basically, and I actually wrote a paper about this, I believe, to get my master's degree. The differences between why Reiki is called Reiki and why prana is called prana. And it's really a cultural thing. It
Yeah,
depends.
prana is Sanskrit, right?
Pardon me?
Prana is Sanskrit, right?
Yes, exactly. And whereas Reiki or Ling Chi is Chinese based, Reiki is Japanese based, but really the base, the origins is Taoism. A lot of people thought, oh, Buddhism is the basis of Reiki, and that, years
Yeah.
ago in the New Age genre, they went that route. But I like going deeper, and I've written a book called Master Reiki, which is a complete course, Reiki course. You do need attunements. I don't believe in doing attunements this way or through books. I believe that in person is best. Now, simply speaking, the difference between Reiki and prana, besides the cultural, one is Indian, the other one is Chinese or Japanese, is really if you work hard at, say, Tai Chi, Qigong, Kung Fu, which I have been for close to 20 years, over 20 years, your healing energies or God energies start to become increased and flow through you, and thus you can initiate self-healing in others. I'll never say, oh, I healed you. Nah, girlfriend. I'll always say, I initiated the healing within you. And really, it doesn't matter. People used to say years ago, it matters whether you believe in this stuff or not, or it matters how much you want to be healed. I believe because of karma,
Yeah.
destiny, if you will, we will heal so much, and then the rest will be healed next lifetime. So
Wow.
we don't really know, so we better do it. We don't know how
Right.
much, if all will be healed, if we're going to be enlightened completely in this lifetime
Right.
or not. So we may as well go on that journey because
Yeah.
it'll only continue next lifetime anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So prana, it's God energy, if you will.
So then,
And I, hmm?
so then you're saying this thing reincarnation does exist.
Well, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a clinical hypnotherapist perspective, which I am as well. I got those credentials years ago. In any case, through my practice of hypnotizing, probably, and I like to use the word self-hypnotizing because it's not like one person has power over another person. The
Right.
person has to want to, they'll lay there, they won't even know they're hypnotized. They'll think to themselves when they're laying or sitting there, I can sit up anytime I want, but they don't. And so through my clinical hypnotherapist practice, I took people to previous lifetimes.
Right.
I was very skeptical at first. My main reason for going into hypnosis was to free people of unwanted behaviors, if you will.
Right.
But everyone virtually were lined up for past life stuff or in between life stuff, and it's like, okay, I better study this now. I was very, very well equipped
Right.
after graduating, but it's like, this intrigues me, and I've yet to do a into the future kind of reading. I'm not
Right.
reading, but hypnotherapy session. I'd like to
Obsession.
try that. So by taking people into their past lives, they would recall names, dates, places,
Previous.
things that they were, and I would do the research, or they would after. And in most cases, those characters existed that they thought they made up. So it's impossible to be creative under self-hypnosis. A lot of people
Right.
think, oh, well, I made that all up, or it's my imagination. But doctors have acknowledged it's impossible. Something about our creativity stops under hypnosis. So everything that's come through under hypnosis and past lives, I believe is true. I believe that's real.
Wow. 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 Those are really good points coming from a hypnotherapist perspective. I didn't realize that your creativity stops when you're in a hypnotherapy session.
Very fun. It's, you know what? It's very fun. The life between.
Well, you're a magician, so you work with cards all the time, like regular playing cards. And isn't it true that regular playing cards were the original tarot?
I believe, and there's all different schools of thought. Um, so I'm just gonna, from based on my research and my book, Practical Tarot. Um, no, I believe the regular playing cards evolved from the tarot.
Okay.
And they were scaled down. They were originally, I forget how many cards in a tarot deck, 70 something, 72 maybe, or 78. And there's a major arcana and a minor arcana. And essentially, our regular deck of playing cards evolved from the minor arcana or arcana, depending on where in the world you're from. Where in the world are you from?
Potato, tomato, tomato.
Yeah, let's call the whole thing ORF. And so, which was also a TV show in the 60s on CBC Canada. In any case, regular playing cards always intrigued me. My dad introduced me to a regular deck of cards. I must have been 6, maybe 7. And he was a musician in Montreal, successful musician in a big city, a drummer. And he always played with me. I was an only child. And one day he pulled out a deck of cards and he said, let's play Carnasta. He called it Carnasta. It's canasta. But I think it was the New York influence. He spent 20 years in New York with family there, his side of the family. And I was right away intrigued. The colors, the reds and the blacks and the kings and the jacks and all this. And something opened up. And a few years later, we had on TV the amazing Kreskin, who's a mentalist or a psychic entertainer. People should not believe he's the real thing. He is a psychic entertainer. He uses magic tricks to make it seem like he's reading minds. All professional magicians know this. And we're also aware of a lot of people who have used magic tricks to deceive other people, to deceive regular people into thinking they're getting healings or whatever, and that's very bad indeed.
Very bad.
Very, very bad indeed. So I'm blessed enough to have the professional magician knowledge and work like crazy. And I love the creative aspect of it. I love the colors involved with it. And this year, it was a very, very exciting year for me. I'd like to talk briefly about a most prestigious organization in England called the Magic Circle, which accepted me this year into their folds. I've been already a member for years of the International Brotherhood of Magicians, the Society of American Magicians, plus the local branches here. We have at least 3 here of those wonderful clubs of sharing. We're like a brotherhood and we share tricks and we teach each other. It's really cool. And we have everything from beginners to seasoned pros. But I had never, part of my bucket list this year with time on my hands, there's never really time on my hands. I'm always writing or editing or filming shows and stuff.
But actually, time is on your hands.
Yes, I love it. Very good. Very good. What's my line? In any case.
Oh, you froze again. Why do you keep freezing?
I'm not okay. You've hit recording. So this year, as part of my bucket list, I decided to approach the prestigious English organization called the Magic Circle. And Prince Charles is in there. Not everybody gets a chance to get in there. You have to do a test. You have to do an exam. You have to present to them.
Okay.
But we're out here. We're in Canada. We're not in England. I would have had to have flown to London, London, and do this. So I thought, let me take advantage of the fact that we're using Zoom a lot. And oh, I tell you, Shy Rose, the things I learned in that little journey towards the Magic Circle. I believe I've refound the real magic in this lifetime.
Wow. Well, what do you mean by real magic? Because, I mean, every magician thinks that they've got real magic in their hands. And And I want to go back. Is Prince Charles a magician then?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
He did the famous cups and balls to get in. There's a very famous picture of him with the Magic Circle logo behind him, etc. And he's doing the cups and balls. So you asked me a question. Not all magicians, performing magicians, believe we're the real thing. In fact, we're some of the most skeptical folks in the world. In
Oh,
fact, I belong to an organization called the Paranormal Investigative Committee of the Society of American Magicians. That paranormal committee was started by Houdini way back when. And
wow.
we investigate, or when fraudulent mediums come across our table or come across our
Yeah.
site or whatever,
Yeah.
we investigate. But that's a whole other thing. Um, so I believe that real magicians, magicians, ritualistic magicians, of course, believe that magic is real. For me, being both, being a performing magician and knowing the real magic of life, for me, it's a little bit subjective.
Okay.
So when, as I was practicing for my performance for the exam, something I got moved, and
Okay.
whenever I get moved, that's my signal that, oh, I've hit a truth or something I've got to look at, something I've got
Right.
to observe. And what flooded back to me, wow, this is very emotional. Caught me
Oh.
unawares. I didn't think I was going to get emotional at this in a good way, but was my childhood, which was very colorful. It was filled with
Did you
comic.
did you always want to be a magician? Were you one of those kids who always wanted to be a magician?
Very young. We had, growing up in Montreal, we had a lot of shows and things from television that hadn't come here yet. We had
Right.
cable in the 50s. Cable didn't come here till the 70s or 80s. So I grew up with a lot of magic shows on television. I grew up with the Magic Land of Alakazam, Mark Wilson, who just actually died this year or last year.
Oh.
And we had a local magician called Magic Tom Auburn in Montreal. He was on 25 years, 7 days a week on television, local television in Montreal. So it excited me to watch magic. To me, it was real. To see the scarves vanish and appear, and all this sort of thing. It always excited me, at least, and
Right.
inspired me to do good. There was something about comic books and animation and magic and the color of it all. And my memories flooded right back to that while I was rehearsing. And something
Wow.
also said, find Disney style music to go with it. Because from a marketing perspective, Disney knows where it's at. They have the emotional ups and downs,
Yeah.
and that's a whole formula that's magic in itself, real and otherwise. So I did. I found copyright free magic, Disney like music to go with my. I coincidentally do a cups and balls routine. I'd put that on hold like 30 years before, and something
Right.
said, do it, do this routine. It's different with this music. And wow, I was right in the moment as I'm doing it. It appears as real magic to me while I'm doing it. I believe that's the key, is whatever excited you and inspired you or still does, that's the real magic in this lifetime. And of course, there's other things like compassion. And when we're working with other people, I think our own excitement will inspire other people.
Right. Right. Well, it's fascinating because the beginning of the year, I started a goal setting exercise. In that goal setting exercise, yeah, I wrote for myself, 50 times what my goal was. And in that goal was I wanted every day to be magical as one of my statements. So, and as far as magic is concerned from a personal perspective, I believe that's happened. Every day is freaking magical for me.
Yes.
um, Something magical happens, seems to happen every single day. I don't plan it, I don't expect it, but and it could be a little thing or it could be a big thing, but it's so un what's the word I'm looking for? It's unplanned. It's something
Yes.
that you never thought would happen, something you didn't even think of. So to me, magic is getting access to that unknown reality or that unknown space and time, and tapping into it and retrieving from it maybe.
Absolutely. You say something which is so true. It's unplanned, except for setting intentions. I believe if we
Right,
set intentions and then let
right,
it go,
right.
part of the roadmap or the
In a
flags
sense,
along our.
that goal was my intention, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Synchronicity is a good key as well, that we're on the right track. It's like coincidence, or is it something more?
Right,
And that's our clue. I'm excited. I love surprises, and I love the surprises that life does give us. Yes, we have
right.
the apparent lows, but
Yeah,
lows are subjective. I believe
right,
the Buddhist adage that life is subjective as opposed to us being judgmental. If something
right.
happens, let's say a friend of ours or a family member, of which I've had quite a few people this past year pass away. They've transitioned, whatever term
Yeah,
you want to use it.
yeah,
Not COVID related though at all. They died. They up and died. I believe their time was up,
right,
and for whatever reasons, maybe they fulfilled their karma, whatever. But there was the door, and they chose to walk through, or maybe they didn't
right.
choose to walk through. Maybe they went
They
kicking and
people,
screaming. But we could look at that as human beings, and I did, because I've got one foot in this world, this physical illusionary world, and one foot and hopefully an arm as well somewhere else. We can look at that as, oh my God, it's so traumatic. I lost so and so. But isn't that so ego based that we lost somebody? Oh, we won't be able to kiss or hug them or speak to them anymore. And as human beings who are full of ego, and if you need me to elaborate on ego, I can in a few minutes, but we'll say, because we're mostly ego based, we take it hard. We're traumatized. But if we can step back and come from a greater perspective of the metaphysical mind, or the mystical mind, or the greater mind, or the higher mind, or the God mind, it's kind of like it was their time. And you actually
yeah,
feel good for them. You feel a peace that passeth
right,
all,
right,
and
right. Because you're living your life, and as you're going through your life, I'm sure there's moments where you want to exit, and you
sure.
feel it time, and you feel, and so knowing that you can feel that, and knowing that, you know, you may have the will to do that. Well, someone else might as well, and you want to be compassionate towards that
Absolutely.
possibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think death, as we call it, is a gift. I really do. Or we might just look at it as a door to the next stage of our higher self,
Right,
moving on to
right,
whatever. But I don't look at it anymore. I'll be 65 in a couple of months. At this point in my life, I'm not scared of death.
yeah.
I
And that
don't
and that's one of our biggest fears, isn't it?
I think so. I really do. I don't want to necessarily suffer on the way out, but I'm not worried about that. It's like when I go, I'll go. That
Right,
means it was my time to go, and
right,
I'll be grateful for that opportunity to move forward.
right, right, right. Absolutely. Um, So there's so many things I want you to elaborate on, actually, because you had mentioned Reiki and prana and the difference between them, but you never really went into what the difference was. So maybe you
Okay.
can do that right now. I've kind of got these footnotes everywhere. Wait, you didn't tell me this. Wait, you didn't tell
Ah,
me this.
excellent. Excellent. Very good. For me, they're literal post-it notes, but if you can do it mentally, wow, I really admire that. So Reiki versus prana. As a practitioner and a teacher of it, I'll speak from that perspective. Prana is a lot of work, and I learned it not from local schools, but I learned it as part of my university degrees, the University of Sedona and the University of Metaphysics. That was a whole thing in itself, and it's very traditional. It's not new agey stuff. It's
Right,
thousands of years old. I researched the new agey prana that they tend to teach, and they credit some guy in the 20th century for having come up with it. That's not true.
right.
It's Sanskrit based. If
Absolutely.
it's Sanskrit, to me, that's my prejudice. It's the real thing. If it's
Absolutely.
Japanese or Taoism or Chinese, and ancient, thousands of years old. It's quote unquote the real thing. So
Okay.
prana is, and it's the breath, it's in the breathing.
Right.
And I practice every single day beside mystical meditation. I practice pranic breathing. And
Okay.
in particular, it's a rhythmic kind of thing, which I'm sure you're familiar with. For those out there not familiar with it, you breathe in and you keep the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, because that's a hanyin point. That's kind of Chinese, Japanese. I like to mix it all to get the best of both worlds. And you can keep your anal sphincter tight, because that's another exit point for energy. So you block the two energy points, you breathe in to the count of, for starters, 6, hold it for 3, the beat of 3, and then release it to the count of 6. Then 1, 2, 3, you breathe in. So it's a rhythmic kind of breathing. You could start at 4 and 2, 6 and 3. If you can go deeper and longer, great. That there's healing in that, because prana is another
Right.
word for God, if you will.
Right.
And I'm taking a lot of shortcuts here. And
Mhm.
there's different techniques, physical techniques. There's I call it the corkscrew. It's got different names and different techniques. And there's
Right.
an overlap between what you do with prana and the physical healing part of it, and qigong healing
Right.
and Reiki healing, because
Right.
it's all, there is a bit of an overlap. There's a pushing and a kneading and a
Right.
banging and a thumping
Right.
and all involved with the breathing, with the rhythmic breathing
Right.
of prana. With Reiki, I find it just easier because I was attuned to it. In other words, Dr. Usui, I think it was in the 1920s or 30s, he owned
Yeah.
a dojo, and people would come to him and they do martial arts. And he found that after 20 years, they developed teate, or touch healing, that suddenly they're healing a. Okay, so after about 20 years of martial arts, people started to become more sensitive, and the healing or God energies would flow out of them, and they found that they could heal through touching or initiate the self-healing of
Right.
others through touch and through the eyes and through the breath and all that. But he also knew Qigong. He also knew Tai Chi. He was Japanese, so the equivalent of some of that is called Kiko. So I just have studied it all, and there's an overlap for me. So sometimes I'll call it Japanese or Chinese names. With Reiki, you get a series of symbols, and there's 3 levels. And I love the attunements, because it took me 3 years to write this book on Reiki, because when I was already teaching, I was attuned to level 3 or master level. Something didn't seem right. It seemed like a fairy tale, the whole tale of Reiki.
Right.
And I was so lucky that 2 of my students, one was a senior, and she was a Buddhist, and she had studied a lot of esoteria in Japan. And the
Wow.
other one was a relatively young woman, but her father was a monk,
Wow.
Chinese monk. And he recognized the Reiki symbols, and he goes, "Well, no, that's not quite right. It's like this or like that." And I
Oh
thought,
wow.
wow, wow, that just blew me away. So that inspired me to really do my research while
Right.
I'm still teaching what I know from my non-traditional teacher. And the book, I was at the time teaching from a fantastic book by Diane Stein. I still love her energy and her methods of teaching, but I was only able to teach what the world knew about Reiki, what the West will say knew about Reiki at the time. But that wasn't good
Right.
enough for me, because I'm
Right.
nuts.
You
So
wanted the real stuff.
yeah. So 3 years of research, and I wrote the book Master Reiki. It's out there if you want it on
Yeah.
Amazon. It's got the
Yeah.
correct symbols if you're about symbols, but really the symbols, as Dr. Usui said, are like training wheels.
Okay.
So it's really to set unconscious intentions. One is for physical healing, one is for emotional healing, one is for spiritual healing. So I still draw them because I've
Right.
experimented. I've had hundreds, I won't say thousands, hundreds of clients who have come to me for healing. And I find that they feel it more when I do use the symbols, when I blow the symbols into them.
Right.
And I've tried both. I've tried many clients without the symbols,
Right.
because I'm thinking, oh, it's just going to work its way in anyway. and consciously with it, it works better with the symbols. Can't explain
Huh.
why, I just know it does. So,
Wow. All I can say to that is my experience with Reiki. So I took level 1 and level 2 of Reiki and got certified and whatnot. But my hands tend to do what they want to do.
yes, yes,
I could be doing anything and they'll start doing whatever they
yes,
want to do. So I let them. And there
yes.
seems to be better results when I let my hands do what they want to do versus.
Exactly. And that's why, where I deviate from book work, book study, to when you're actually doing it, something just might say, or your hands just might say, no, you don't have to hold them here. Something says, go here and go here, or do this or do that or whatever.
Yeah,
And you have to trust that because something greater than you at work flowing through you.
right, right. Wow. Okay, so the next question I wanted to go back to was you said you took all these different courses in magic. And so tell me what transpired from the first one to the very last one. There must have been a change in your consciousness or your abilities or your experience by doing that. And there must have been like these aha moments that you might want to share.
Basically, that all happened this year, which is really weird because I've been doing magic, playing with magic, let's say, performance magic. I want to say not ritual magic. I've been playing with performance magic since I was 14, started doing some shows, and, it was exciting. When I did my shows, I was naturally enthusiastic.
Right,
And I didn't learn from anybody back in the day being in the 50s, 40s, 30s. For me, it was the 60s and 70s. There was books. So we had to learn from books. There wasn't DVDs, there wasn't videos,
right,
unless you were fortunate enough to have a teacher. Even Montreal, a huge city like Montreal, it's hard to access professional magicians who will
right,
come and like you.
right,
So I learned all from books and later on by watching other magicians. So I'm self-taught, for sure. And also I go by my audiences. If I think I've come up with a good bit, they may not respond, they may not laugh, or they may not go. And I'm often surprised as well. So I have to play it by ear. I can only do my best, practice the sleight of hand, the routining of it. It's a whole structure, it's a whole thing. And then you have to relax. You have to know it so well that it's embedded so that it's committed to muscle memory, if you will. And you go out there and you just do it.
right.
And there's a whole structure for shows and stuff as well, which I won't get into. It wasn't until the 80s I realized I was doing it right. I read
Right.
a book about children's magic. He was a kid show magician. He's still alive, named David Ginn. And it's like, holy cow, I discovered myself that you should do this kind of trick at the beginning, another kind in the middle, and so forth. But the way I am too, I'm often inspired, so I'll bring a lot of extra tricks. And if I think, no, I don't think I should show them this now, I'll show them this now. It's
Right.
a very intuitive
You
art.
ad lib and you do what you gotta do to make the show
Exactly.
a success, and
And
you
to
follow your
entertain.
intuition and what the audience is doing. That's excellent.
You have to. It's fun. That's what I love
Yeah.
about it. I love improvising. Um, and hopefully my audiences, I'm told that they get excited and they laugh and they seem to like me. And that's half the battle. I was
Right.
told a long time ago that if they like you, you can do the simplest thing and they'll love it. They'll think it's amazing. But I still try and I still,
Yeah.
because
So
that's the
you
way I
mentioned
am.
you mentioned ritual magic and traditional. What was the other word you used? Practicing
Not
or
sure. I just what I call real magic, ritual magic. I've studied all of that. It didn't overlap until this year. I
oh wow.
tried to force it. I tried to when I had my metaphysical ministry for a few years, because it
So
was
there
like,
is some truth to this ritual magic as well. You can.
yes, absolutely. There's no question about that because you're working with the elements and the directions. And if you study the Wiccan traditions and native traditions and Celtic traditions, there's a huge overlap of the circle. the directions, animals. It's just depending on the traditions, it's just they change the colors. So, you know, if it's native spirituality, it's black in the north instead of green,
Right.
and all that sort of thing. And if you're in Europe, then the directions are a little bit the other way. But what excited me years ago, I did the research in the 90s because I wanted the overlap. I wanted to figure it all out.
Right.
Um, and I found it in the Celtic wheel, which apparently I didn't know it was a thing, the Celtic wheel. And my Celtic wheel that I came up with combines the directions. It combines Wiccan, native, the tarot, the directions, elements, colors, all of that. And then it all made sense to me. That brought things together years ago. But this year, when I was approaching the magic circle, I got inspiration from a senior magician.
Right.
He is the president of a local chapter, an international chapter of the Society of American Magicians. And he'd seen me perform many times. He saw me perform for some of his gala shows, and, you know, we're not strangers. He was very big in the 80s, as a lot of us were in the 90s. Then there was, for some reason, a break. And he said to me about my performances, and no one's ever said this before. I'm what they call a worker. We go out and do shows for the agents and make a good buck, and we're good. But he said, it's something about my hands, the way I move my hands.
Right. Go ahead.
And I told him that I do Tai Chi, and so does he. And so he believes, and I do as well, that something about working with energy, the chi ball or whatever, Reiki or prana, makes us more graceful, maybe, or maybe on some level where we're more aware of something. I don't know.
Right.
So that excited me, that inspired me. That was the beginning of metaphysics and magic, performance magic overlapping. And then, as I said, as I was practicing, I got inspired, and I believe I found the real magic, and it moved me and all that. And that's what inspired my latest book. It's not a plug. I'm being real honest about this.
I know. I understand.
You know, metaphysics, mysticism.
Because in the time I've known Michael, every single book he's written, that I don't know about all his hundreds of books yet, but the ones he talked about when I knew him, it was always inspired by something that happened around that time. And there's a story behind it. And so, certain people can write books based on their inspirations that they get. And I believe Michael's one of those people.
Well, thank you, Sharose. And you make a valid point. I guess that was a pattern for me, is I'll be inspired. Inspiration is at the key of it for me for writing. So I came up with metaphysics, mysticism, and performance magic.
Wow.
And in it, it sounds bigger than it is. I'm essentially promoting, and I've put pictures or stills from my video teachings of Tai Chi, etc. Tai Chi, I'm promoting Tai Chi, I'm promoting mystical meditation, I'm promoting prana, I'm promoting all the things that worked for me so that I could share it with others. And I believe that makes my performing of magic on stage, and I believe it will make any performer a better performer if they're in touch in that way. If you practice Tai Chi, just Tai Chi. If you practice yoga, just yoga. If you practice Qigong or Qigong, you know, or any kind of martial arts. I'm very biased and partial to Gong Fu or Kung Fu, because I believe everything else came from that. You practice energy work and meditation, and your performances on stage will be better. It may not happen overnight. It might take a year, might take a few months, might take 10 or 20 years, but the energy flowing through you, the higher energies, will somehow guide you on a level that you yourself won't even be aware of, but your audiences will be.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So oftentimes when we work with energy, we work with our hands, and magicians often work with their hands when they're doing things. So is there a correlation? Is there like some kind of magic that literally happens when you're working with your hands and doing a magic trick?
I think so. As magicians, as stage magicians or performance magicians, we're very skeptical. So for us, a regular magician might just, let's see if I can show this properly.
Yeah.
We're prepared. We'll move this a little bit. A regular magician might just do that and it's gone.
Right.
Okay? For me, that's not art. For me, that's not exciting. That's not, oh, let's bring it back. There we go. For me, something like this, why run if you're not being chased? That's what we call it, is to gracefully put it there and to gracefully do that. And you really believe in your mind, you've made it.
What the frick did you just do?
I really believe I made it vanish. And I think that's the key. But if you're just, like a lot of magicians, you'll just, oh, it's back. You'll just do it. And maybe you'll be aware of the sleight involved. And, I believe that entertaining the audience is probably more important than the actual sleight. When I first started out professionally, the local magicians in Winnipeg hated me because I used trick decks and I used anything but sleight of hand. I was very adept at sleight of hand, but it was hard for me to entertain and free myself up if I had to worry about doing a sleight.
Right.
If you can accomplish the same thing with a trick deck of cards and make it look magic and believe it is, that's way better than worrying. And, when the perspiration is on your brow and it's like, there, doesn't that look good? Well, no, it doesn't. The audience can do its force.
Right.
So the key is believing it's real. I believe there is some kind of energy that goes on. I can see it well. I like playing with that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can see it sometimes. I can definitely feel it. And it's getting stronger for sure.
Everybody's journey is different, right?
Yeah. When I say stronger, I mean it's more dense now than it used to be. I can literally like cup it if I want to with my hands, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
How exciting is that? That's so exciting.
It's amazing. And like I said, every day has become more and more magical in that, not just in energy, but in everything, in synchronicity and in meditation and dreams. Everything is more magical. And in my reality, like, sometimes there are pretty crazy things that happen and not necessarily positive, but it's still like, how the frick could that possibly happen? It's very magical.
Exactly. In your case, and in the case of a lot of people, when we're stripped clean of something, it's kind of to shake us up and make us aware that nothing is permanent.
Right.
One of the main things of Buddhism is impermanence.
Right.
And how secure do we feel when suddenly our address book is gone or our contacts are all gone? And it's like, 10, 20 years ago or more, that would freak me out.
Right.
I'd be on the verge of non-coping. I would be non-coping.
Right.
Like, and now it's like, they say it's an age thing. As we get older, we take things more in stride.
Yeah.
And perhaps there's something to that. But if it's your business or if it's something that you have deemed really important and it's gone. Like when I came here, I never thought, I probably wouldn't have come here if I thought I would lose everything. What I thought was everything. I never would have. For years, I had regrets and I was berating myself and going, oh, why did I move here? I lost, it's not the same. I'm not making thousands a weekend, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I don't care anymore. It's 27 years has passed. I think what I've gained more, this COVID thing is actually a blessing. We get to use Zoom. We get to use Facebook Instant Messenger and the video thing there. I've conversed with more magicians throughout the world in the past year. I've done more in magic, performance magic, in the last year than I have all my life. I thought I was successful in Winnipeg, but wow, now the world is our stage thanks to Zoom because we're forced to or led to be doing this.
Right. Yeah, forced to or led to. Who knows what that is? Another form of magic, I'm sure.
Yes.
So let's now go to that question we skipped earlier, and that is, you asked me if you want me to tell people about the ego, I can. So do you want to
Ah,
do that?
sure. Because that'll lead into a few other things on my agenda. Uh,
Right.
we have an agenda, and sometimes it overlaps, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, oftentimes, at least when I was younger, a few years ago, I thought ego had to do with, oh, thinking you're better than other people. And maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
But the ego I equate with the human mind, the fragile part, the earthly part, as opposed to the God mind, which is
Right.
eternal.
Wow.
And the God mind is above the ego mind. The ego mind is the difference between our human mind and the God mind, if you will. The ego makes us think we're better than others. The ego makes me aware, okay, I don't want my double chin or my turkey neck to show right now is the straight. It makes us fret about stuff that really, when I first moved out here, people used to say, don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
It puts us like too much in this real, actually illusionary physical world,
Right.
versus the God mind. And we're subject to that. If we've reincarnated into this life, if we exist physically right now, we have, and this was one of my last books I wrote, my last metaphysical books, because I felt I hit it, that's it, there's not much more. Otherwise, I'll keep repeating myself. In meditation or self hypnosis, I say to myself every day four things. I let go of my personal ego will. Because if we do just that one thing of the four things that I'm about to mention, wow, we're more on track with source or God, if you will,
Right.
or we're more in tune with the God mind, higher mind, universal mind.
Right.
So letting go of the personal ego will is so crucial. It's one of the most important things. We're also subjected, if you will, to karma.
Right.
And Christian folks, followers of the Christian religion, they say we're original sinners. Or we're born into sin, we're sinners. But what that really meant, because of language differences, was we're born into karma
Right.
because of whatever we did in the previous lifetime. And it doesn't mean retribution. A lot of people don't understand the word karma. Karma is not retribution for bad acts. It's a balance. It's a cause and effect, if you will. So, for example,
Right.
in this lifetime, if, and let's say, God forbid, I stole from someone or I killed someone, it may not come back to me as having killed someone, but the energy will be the same. And it may or may not be in this lifetime. It might be in next lifetime or
Right.
lifetime after
And
that.
I also believe your intention in that moment also plays a
Yes,
part in how that karma transfer
absolutely.
unfolds for you, right? If your
Absolutely.
intention behind the act was, well, I don't know how killing someone could ever be out of love, but if your intention was a positive intention in whatever act it was, then your karma is different than if it was a vicious act of
I agree.
fear or anger or hate or whatever those are.
I agree. Absolutely. So, getting rid of our personal ego will, getting rid of or releasing, if you will, negative karma. All this occurs or should occur, hopefully will occur on certain levels of our mind, because
Right.
we've got multiple levels of our mind, not just the regular two or three that
Right.
normal psychology, that Western psychology dictates. So all this happens in your mind when you're healing yourself or when you're doing this releasing in altered states.
Right.
I'll say to myself, I let go of my personal ego will. I release any negative karma. I used to say to God, but I don't want to be judgmental. I don't want to put that in there. Of course, it gets released, maybe to the universe. The universe is God. So I just
Right.
say, I let go of my personal ego will. I release, I say that in my mind, I release any negative karma. And
Right.
that includes not just from this lifetime, but previous lifetime. And I'm
Times.
telling you, Shiro, since I've been doing this, I guess the last four, maybe more years, 4 or 5 years, my life has begun to be physically transformed, as well as emotionally and spiritually. It really, that's a big issue. I don't know if we can get rid of all karma, but we can try to. We can aim for that.
Yeah,
Um,
I been practicing something called the Sedona method. Are you familiar with that?
It sounds familiar. I'm not sure.
Well, it's really simple. You just whatever it is, whatever issue you're battling, you ask it to be there, and then you ask the opposite to be there as well, and then you ask the two to talk to each other, and you ask the two to forgive each other, and then you let go, and then you ask God, universe, whatever you want, to fill that space with the best of both.
Wow.
That's been working for me.
That's awesome. That's like the mind treatments
Right.
in ancient wisdom, timeless wisdom, metaphysics. We call it mind treatments, and it's essentially that in kind of in a nutshell, and releasing during affirmative or scientific prayer. And if you want to talk about affirmative prayer, it's not what a lot of people think it is. Releasing negative karma, identifying with God is also one of the hardest things to do. We are God. And I don't mean that in an egotistical sense. I'm sure you understand that. But a lot of folks out there might resist that notion. It's like, no, not God, not the human concept.
Well, the thing is, the way I say it is, if the Bible says it, we live, move, and have our being in God. So if you live, move, and have your being in God, your being is in God too.
Exactly.
And you are that being. So you are God, because if everything in that statement is God, then you're God.
Exactly. And a lot of folks, I mean, I was guilty of this growing up. I was born into a Jewish family. I'm Jewish, and we're given, like a lot of religions are, a humanistic image of God. And God having human attributes, which of course God does not. God is energy, God is creation, God is creativity, God is love, God is
everything. Yeah. And if God is everything, then he's what's seen and unseen. And that includes you, and that includes a computer, and that includes everything around you, because at its most molecular level, it is all one thing.
Yes. Absolutely. And actually you just made my point, which is really cool. It's like there is no place God is not. It's like we're all made up, the whole world is made up of molecules or cells, if you will, and at the core atoms, and at the core of atoms is source. They haven't identified it. They kind of have, as you know, the boson thing, whatever that's called.
Yeah, the boson particle.
Yeah, and that's God. That's the God particle. Like scientists have already identified it, but they won't call it God, and that's okay. You know, that's
there's a book by Roger Penrose called The God Particle.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually calls it the God particle.
Yes, I've heard of that book as well. But it's true. It's absolutely true. So identifying with God is another thing I do during meditation. Releasing karma, letting go of my personal ego, identifying with God. If you can identify with God and just slip into that matrix, if you will, another more modern term is calling God or life, everything we're illusionary, on an illusionary scale, we think we're seeing, that's actually God. It's all comprised. Identifying with God. And finally, if you've done all that, this is the journey in one of my books, The Fourfold Path to Enlightenment. Prayer and praying and thinking from the mind of God or the mind of the universe. If all our prayers and thoughts came from God, which they do really, but you want to make sure that they are, by doing these other things, by meditating, even if you just meditate, even if you just do mystical meditation and sit for 10, 20 minutes a day and focus on your breath, or focus up in here in the third eye, just doing that, you're way ahead of the game, if indeed it's a game. So these four things are in The Fourfold Path to Enlightenment, one of my books. And it's one of my favorite books because it's not a thick book at all, but it's very intense. And I cover these points and cover a lot of stuff. And you have to do the work. I think it all boils down to, I don't know if it was you and I talking or me and someone else, you know, there's no magic wand. You got to put in the work. You got to be disciplined.
Well, there is a magic wand, but it only appears when you put in the work and you be disciplined.
Very good. Very good. Very, very good. You know, I remember clients coming to me at one point. Well, I was 7 years at a metaphysical store in Coquitlam for 7 years, 2 days a week, Fridays and Sundays. And Fridays, I'd usually have 10 readings lined up.
Right.
And I insisted that they not be like 10-minute readings or 15-minute readings because I said, I can't accomplish too much.
Yeah.
Minimum 1 hour. That's 10 hours of readings, man. I needed my break in the middle. But in any case, everyone, not everyone, but many people had the expectations by seeing me, their life is going to be good again. And
Right.
maybe temporarily I made them feel good, my energy, or we would meditate together at the beginning and at the end. I made
Right.
sure of that.
Right.
And but you know, you gotta, the same thing with my metaphysical ministry, you gotta put in the work. I can give you the information, but I can throw you the ball, pass you the ball, but if you don't run with it, if you don't do something with it.
Right. Yeah. True. Very, very true.
Okay, so talk about starting and stopping and things working and not electronically. I believe our energy affects things. So back in the day when I used to record on cassette, that's how long ago it was, my readings to give to people. Um, Sometimes a whole hour would pass and the tape would be blank. It
Wow.
wasn't blank because I didn't press record. It would be blank because they weren't meant to. And they were the kind of person in some cases that would interpret literally what was said,
Right.
opposed to just listening and feeling and allowing images to come to them. I once had, it was actually a local.
Want to hear something amazing? And that whole time you didn't freeze for 1 second.
Wow, fascinating. So there you go. I believe if it's meant to be, it won't freeze, or it'll show up. I remember one person was a local celebrity, and I don't remember who it was. It was a female. She had a steno pad, and she wrote word for word what I was saying in the reading. And I, I hoped this would all work out, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to work out. And this person was a friend of mine, a mutual friend, referred her to me. And afterwards, I heard from my friend, and she said she wants her money back. She said, nothing you said was true, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You know, oftentimes I'll hit things on the nail. I'll give information that they know already about brothers and sisters and names and dates. That's kind of show.
Here's my theory on this, if I may say. If someone's coming in there with the sense of doubt to begin with, then chances are they're going to walk out with the doubt or the end result being right.
Absolutely.
Because,
Absolutely.
because they're going to mirror back to them exactly what they came in with them.
Absolutely. And there are those too who don't really want to get better. They don't really want to learn. So they'll come in with skepticism. And I learned how to deal with that as a reader. I would give them the first 10 minutes free.
Right.
And the store didn't like that I did that, but who cares? So I would give them the first 10 minutes free. And I'd warn them, I'd say the first 10 minutes, if we jive, if you feel good with me, we'll continue and you'll pay after the 10 minutes because we're going to go an hour. But if you don't feel good, you can walk away, walk away with the tape, the 10-minute thing, we're all good to go. So that eliminated a lot of problems, a lot of problems. Once a year, there'd always be someone. It was always once, maybe twice a year, someone, no, that's wrong. No, that's not right. No, 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 no. Well, bye. You know, I tried,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about right now is probably what people don't want to hear, but just search within and just search within is all I have for advice for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we're born with intrinsically all the answers.
Yeah.
And to unlock it with my preferred method is meditation, traditional meditation or mystical meditation. Relax yourself enough. Just like, oh my goodness, this just came to me. You know, when you sit around and you're relaxed enough, all of a sudden you'll get an idea or you'll get inspiration. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. If you're worried or nervous or concerned or you need direction, you just sit, clear your mind, however long it takes, And if you get off track, just go back to focusing on your breathing or whatever works for you. And then just start to go about your daily thing, and it'll hit you. The idea is not to be, and I think they used to call it monkey mind or
Yeah.
chatter mind. Do you remember
Yeah.
what that was?
Yeah. It's monkey mind. That's your mind that's always talking to you or talking back at you, whichever way you want to look.
And that's the self-defeating ego. That's the ego mind. I call it the lower mind, judgmentally, because some people relate to that.
The ego aspect of you judges the ego in you.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. This is so cool. It's like almost like no time has passed.
It is. It's, well, we're friends, so we can communicate and share, and we both sort of have a similar interest, so we can discourse, I guess is a good word, about these matters and have fun with it.
Absolutely. Do you know what? Have you heard the term recently, aura fluffing?
The auraphone?
Aura fluffing.
Did you say auraphone?
No, aura fluffing. Fluffing, fluffing, if that's the correct spelling.
Aura fluff. No, I have not. Tell me about it.
So this came across my desk, or actually it came across someone I didn't expect it to. She approached me. I consider her a friend. She's gotten a lot of free Reiki sessions. I've had my students working on her. She was kind enough to participate. And I don't know if she phoned me or texted me out of the blue. And she goes, Mike, do you know what aura fluffing is? I think I need one. And it's like, oh, right? She means dusting off the aura.
Dusting off the aura, yeah.
So this is the latest term for that, for dusting off the aura fluffing. And
that's kind of sad. I like the pristineness of the actual process itself, because it gives it respect.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. And it gives it you know, there's a sense of responsibility for every healer who's doing a healing on somebody. Yes. It's not something to take lightly, because you have another being in front of you, and that healing work that's being done between the two of you is a real sacred act.
I was just going to use that term, sacred, but you beat me to it. Absolutely. Both have a responsibility. The person has a responsibility to themselves for seeking healing if they believe they need that. And as a practitioner, we have responsibilities to our clients or students or whatever, whoever comes to us. And yes, it is a sacred thing. It's the fact that Source has trusted us in this role is big.
Yeah, and both of us, you the healer and me the one wanting to be healed, we're both being trusted in this role.
Yes.
And to respect and to experience this beautiful experience. I mean, I can understand curiosity for those who haven't done it yet and all that. Absolutely. But when you're being curious, take it seriously, you know?
Absolutely. I've been so blessed, though, with 98% of my clients that I've been seeing since I've moved out here. I guess it's 27 years. Holy cow. 98% of them, so amazing. It's been such a mutually enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
And 1 or 2%, one of my coworkers had worked beside me in the store all those years. Like if I'd get frustrated or aggravated or hurt or whatever, afterwards she'd say, they're just not ready.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, duh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know, and we might think we're ready. And that's probably when we're not ready. I'm not sure. You know, we have to trust that feeling. Okay. You know, and there has to be a curiosity, an innate excitement and curiosity rather than, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. But there's nothing wrong with going for a reading for fun.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a lot of clients like that. It was their first and not their last experience. I remember in the store as well, we used to have they had a date book, and I was privy to it. And I used to like to look up and see what the other readers were doing and how well they were doing. But more importantly, who, like, I had a client, one of my clients was seeing readers every single day of the week.
And different ones.
Yes, for years.
I would highly recommend to stick to the same reader. Like, choose somebody that you work with, that you enjoy, and then stick with them. You know,
Yeah.
even if you felt that your reading with them was, I don't know, not perfect or whatever, but just still stick with them, because that energy will then build and grow, and that expansion that'll take place between you and that reader
Absolutely.
will be way more powerful than you jumping from one reader to another.
Absolutely.
It's like when you meditate, you know, we're encouraged to meditate in the same place, in the same space, with the same blanket or pillow or whatever. And there's a purpose to that, and that's the energy, and working with that energy, and that energy, when it builds, you want it to expand. When you work with the same reader, it probably will.
Absolutely. The reason I bring this up, I agree with you 1,000%. And I've been blessed enough that most of my clients stuck with me, or put up with me, if you will, for more than 10 years, in some cases 15 or more years. Maybe for that reason, I don't know. I was told a lot of good things, ego stuff that I'm too embarrassed to admit or say. But in any case, I had the one client, this is why I brought up, I didn't realize after 3, maybe 5 years, she came to see me every week. And I didn't realize, oh, she was seeing all the other readers too. Her issue was money. She
Oh.
was spending a lot of money on readings, I wrote. and so much so, I mean, it started to dawn on me. I said to her, I brought up the question, why don't you like skip a month, not see me for a month? It's none of my business if she sees the other readers. I said, skip a month or two. In fact, I'd usually recommend to people 3 months, every 3 to 6 months, or if and when it feels right, to go back to the reader. And
Right.
she refused. She kept on seeing me. And one session, I was right in the middle of a session, she blurted out, she's heading over to the casino. And unbeknownst to me, she was hooked on gambling.
Oh,
And this wasn't information that came to me for the 5 years that I was seeing her, or she was seeing
wow.
me. And that's why she lost her, well, she was losing, I don't know if she actually lost her condo or not. And she was running into a lot of problems. Had I known that earlier, I would have been equipped as
Yeah.
a clinical hypnotherapist to maybe,
Sway her in another direction. Yeah.
yeah, So I felt so bad. So I quit her.
Did you ask Spirit what that was all about, and why you didn't get the hit on that?
Yes, absolutely. You know, but boy, she was angry when I said, you can't see me anymore, or I can't see you. I made it, like, I can't see her anymore. I said, it's not going anywhere. She swore right and left. She was so frustrated and angry, but I didn't want that responsibility. I
No.
didn't want to have the store and me take her money. That wasn't
Yeah.
the issue. I mean, that was the issue in a way. It was money. I didn't want to participate in that throwing money away. Not that you throw away money in a reading, but no, save your money,
Right.
deal with the, and I point blank.
Deal with your money issues first, and then
Oh, I point blank said to her, see somebody about addictions.
Right.
Oh, whoa. So that's the only regret I actually have. uh,
Right.
of the thousands, we figured out tens of thousands
Right.
of clients that I've seen, is that one woman that I didn't have the foresight or information to know.
Obviously you remember the story, so you felt it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but that's her karma. I recognize that now, or our karma, or
Yeah.
whatever. We came together. Maybe I should have asked other questions. I have no regrets in that way. It's a learning experience, and hopefully she's in a better place. Who knows? But you have to look at it as learning.
So I want to talk to you about you. I'm looking behind you and I see children's books, and I know you do magic and animation and other things. Well, not animation, but children's so-called shows. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Okay. What you're probably referring to or looking at is this
Yeah, that.
and that. Um, what those are, because I'm a graphic artist as well for many years, college trained, is and also to satisfy my creativity, I came up with some animated featurettes. So I worked for an animation company in Montreal, and we did animated commercials and that sort of thing. And I never got over it. I loved it. They went under and I moved on, but I didn't move on. I still love drawing and I still love animation. So I came up with ego based. Well, what are you going to do? There's still people in Manitoba and in Winnipeg who remember me for my TV show. So anything I sell on Amazon to do with Magic Mike, they buy. Nothing else sells. I have to tell you, I have to tell folks out there, I've written how many? 45, 46 self-help metaphysical books.
Can't sell them.
You know what sells like hotcakes are the gosh darn Magic Mike. There's 15 or 16. There's DVDs. That's a DVD. There's a comic book. Those sell like hotcakes. It's not all Manitobans that buy them. Some are buying in the States. I look at demographics, right? And it's like, I don't know. But the process was fun. I started off with drawings and I colored them. I work on a computer to do that. And I work with limited resources as well because I don't have the time or money to learn it in school. So I'm all self-taught. Anything you see on the internet of mine, the graphics, the animation, the video clips, do that all myself.
Right.
And I love it. I love the challenge. I love learning.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I love doing my own productions too, because anytime you let someone else do something, it's never the way you want it to be.
Right. Your energy isn't in it. Their energy is in it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that I'm proud of. It's called The Adventures of Young Magic Mike or Young Magic Mike's Castle. And really, I was inspired by, I don't know if you remember Rocky and Bullwinkle, those cartoons, and they had fractured fairy tales, and it was kind of crudely drawn a little bit compared to Disney or Hanna-Barbera. So I purposely, I could make anything look realistic. I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm an illustrator, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a photograph and my work. But I purposely did it in a kind of a funny, wonky way, like those cartoons. But I could have made it very smooth animation. I could have made it perfect. But people who really know me, they know I mock myself.
Right.
Even my TV show, which ran for 9 years, kids would take it as a fun kid show.
Right.
The adults recognized it, hopefully, for what it was, which was mocking kid shows.
Right.
Making fun of kid shows, including ourselves.
Right.
And that's why it was so much fun, because we catered, as I do in my live shows as well, I cater on a number of levels. Like I'll make something vanish and the kids will love it, but I'll say something and the adults will laugh and the kids will get it, right? So it's just who I am, a bit of cynicism, self-mockery, and very inspired by David Letterman. I loved Letterman in the 80s before he moved to CBS. He literally would run some of his guests ragged. I wasn't happy about the cruelty, but I loved the sarcasm and the self-mockery.
Right.
So that's kind of what my stuff hopefully is still based in. I won't do a project unless I can have that in there, unless I can relax myself enough that, you know, some people will get that. Other people will look at it and go, oh, that's kind of neat. And that's cool too.
So what about Mike's illusions?
I'm sorry?
What about Magic Mike's illusions?
Oh, the big illusions, you mean?
Yeah.
Or the tricks?
The big illusions.
Okay. Because, you know, magicians, we classify illusions as the big box things, and versus the cabaret size. Yeah. Okay, good. So I had big illusions.
Like the David Copperfield type of illusion.
Yeah, those were great fun. See, now you're going to get me all excited talking about that. I had about 10.
Well, just a little bit.
Yeah. 10 big illusions, 10 huge slice and dice, we call them in the magic world amongst magicians, slice dice things. My first wife would be the assistant. She had the right body type. You kind of have to be 5'3" and very slender with no extra body parts coming out, if you know what I mean. Because illusions are just naturally commercially built to accommodate that size assistant. I was very small in those days as well. And sometimes I would fit in those illusions.
And you still are, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for that. But, you know, I work at it. And so, yeah, they were fun. Sometimes she would produce me. Sometimes I'd have other assistants I would train to do that. And it's a completely different skill set. Because yes, you are doing music to it, but it can only be done on stage or on the floor of a bar or a dance floor. And my criteria was it had to be not only self-contained, but angle-proof, what we call it.
Again.
I don't know. My criteria for doing large illusions was angle-proof, self-contained, so that I could do it anywhere, even though really you do it on stage or you do it on a dance floor, etc., if you're hired to do that. I found that it required completely different skill sets, movement, timing. If you're a dancer, it helped. It helps. You can certainly tell the difference between magicians who are not dancers or don't have any stage training. I was blessed enough to have formal stage training and movement early on. So I'm very grateful for that. Like rather than walk on a, you walk a certain way or you stand a certain way, you're aware of how your hands are and not. So I was thankful enough to be able to add that into my presentations. With close-up, you know what I noticed? Such a shift, Shy Rose. People used to love the big illusions. It's expected of you if you're working a cruise ship or doing Vegas or if you're especially out east and you got big paying shows. There's such a difference between payment here on West Coast and payment on East Coast. I won't get into that. I was quite shocked and angry and still resentful. Okay, right. Magicians out east get $400 for a simple half-hour show. People out here, $100, 125, 150. So, whatever. But the movement from large illusions to close-up has been quite obvious over the last few years. People much prefer seeing something under their nose. In a walk-around situation, in a restaurant situation, or even on a small cabaret type stage, with them right up close. And quite frankly, I love that challenge as well. We can hide behind the big boxes in a way, or we can be right in their faces. And I love both. But I love the challenge of being right there. Look at this, it vanished. How did that happen?
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, how are we doing? Did you exhaust all the things you wanted to cover today?
I believe so. I believe so. The four things, the fourfold path to enlightenment, things like prana, meditation, Reiki, all crucial. If people out there don't really know me, I've got my autobiography out. I did a book signing a few years ago for it out east. Magic Mike Likey, A Man for All Seasons. All these books are available through Amazon, not as ebooks or PDFs, but as solid, tangible books, because I feel that's important. They used to be in PDF, but not anymore. And if you're a performer of sorts, get the latest book, Metaphysics, Mysticism, and Performance Magic, all from Amazon.
Wow. Wow. I really enjoyed this. I really, really enjoyed this. It was fun hanging out with you today.
Same.
And an honor to communicate with you and do this interview for you yet again. And I look forward to future collaborations with you. And let's get you out there again. Let's get you on the Metaphysical Hub, and let's see what we can create together.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I have a good feeling. I think there's going to be a store or something again. I don't know. Right?
Oh, wait. Yeah, that's absolutely what I want. So.
Me too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike. Thank you, Dr. Mike Likey.
Thank you, Shy Rose.
Thank you.